guess it was about my freshman in high school. I just started noticing it seemed like such a select few people had so much power. And I guess I just realized that we needed to be so careful about who we gave it to, why we gave it to them, and making sure that they use it correctly. I was fortunate enough, 2 weeks ago, I spent a week serving as a page for my state senator in Tallahassee, and was able to be on the floor as they were presenting bills and amendments, and getting an inside look at how Congress works was just incredible, because the majority of the people there, if not all of them, had worked hard to be there, wanted to be there, and were doing a good job. I sometimes hesitate when people ask me what I want to do when I grow up. I sometimes hesitate to say I want to go into politics because it carries such a stigma. And I'm afraid not a lot of my contemporaries are interested in it. They either think it doesn't apply to them, which is absolutely not true, or that it's for older people, it's boring, and I've never found it to be so. I wish more people would get involved and interested, because from what I found out, there are many areas that people my age can get involved, whether it's, as I did, as a page, or working for a campaign in the smaller areas like county commission and those areas. I just think it's important for the younger generations who will soon be, as scary as the thought is, taking over some of these positions, to be aware of what's going on so that they can adequately do what is being done by others.
By being sandwiched between what, United States Senator, then we had 3 congressmen, and later on we'll have a United States Senator again. I think it's kind of like George Goebel said on The Tonight Show, right? It's do you ever feel like the world is a tuxedo and you're a pair of brown shoes? That's the way you feel when you show up as a school board member, which kind of brings me to my point, and that is that it's nice to have senators here, it's nice to have congressmen here, but let's not forget that the decisions that affect your lives the most take place on a local level. That county commission races, city commission races, school board. Our school board here in Orange County, for example, has a $1 billion budget. That's billion with a B. We have 174,000 students, and it's the 12th largest school district in the United States. That's excluding our building program, by the way, which is somewhere now between $200 and $400 million annually, depending on how quickly we can get some of these projects up and running. So it's very important that you focus on some of these local races. And that gets me also to my point, and that is how difficult it is to raise money as a candidate for a local race. We're talking about money in politics. When you're a United States congressman or a senator, you have people chasing you down to write checks for you. When you're running for school board, it's very difficult to get anybody interested in that kind of race. There are some people who are that maybe do some business with the school board, and maybe that's not appropriate for them to be supporting candidates, but it's also true that those people have the most information about how the school board runs, and they can see whether really somebody's going to be a good candidate or bad candidate, whether they think they're going to be a good school board member. So it's very important, I think, to make sure if you're going to get involved in politics, you're going to support candidates and that sort of thing, that you take a good hard look. You know, maybe you want to support a candidate for the city commission in Maitland. It's not glamorous. It's not going to be on television. It's not going to make the headlines. But to tell you the truth, you're probably going to have more of an impact on your local community than you do if you go out and put signs out in the yard for George Bush or John Kerry. I can tell you that from a school board perspective, our goal, and I think the purpose of public education, is to provide an informed citizenry to participate at all levels in the democracy. I mean, when you go back to the founders and you read some of the letters and some of the essays written by the founders, they talk about public education and how important public education is to fuel a democracy. If you don't have an informed and educated citizenry, you can't have a democracy that works. So from the Orange County School Board's perspective, one of the things we try to do is focus on citizenship and what it means to be a citizen, what it means to participate in democracy. We've just started, Kids Voting, for example, has just started a partnership with Orange County Public Schools, where we talk about the upcoming elections. It's a not-for-profit organization that we permit to come into the schools and talk to the kids about what's happening with the upcoming elections, and they vote on election day, just like their parents do. Some of you I see here from local high schools, so I don't know whether you've participated in it or not, but it's a pretty interesting process. It's important that we teach in our public school system that the purpose, the reason we're there, is to make sure that they participate in these democratic activities. So I think it's important for us to devote a large part of the budget. I know this is about money and politics, so maybe I'll talk a little bit about my school board race. I had to raise and spend $90,000 in a school board race. We have single-member districts here in Orange County. Single-member district, Orange County, it's about 1 million people. It's carved up into 7 single-member districts. My district is Southeast Orange County, east of 436, south of 50. Most of the population is east of 436, south of 50, Alafaya Trail and west, and north of the Beeline Expressway. That's where most of the population is. The rest of it is swamp. But nonetheless, that's where most of the population is. That's where we have to focus mailers. That's where we have to walk neighborhoods. That's where we have to campaign. Have to go out, convince people that I'm the candidate that they need to fill the seat for that district. The only way that I can get a message out is through the mail, maybe through some automated phone calls, maybe some yard signs. Those little yard signs you see cost between $1.50 and $2.50 each. During my campaign, I bought and put out 2,000 campaign signs. I did mailers to several mailers to as many as 40,000 people. The mailers at that time were running about 60, 65 cents each, including postage, printing, handling. They were nice color pieces, and they got a message out. In fact, I think I showed you some of the pieces, Lou, and they were nice pieces, but I've got to tell you, it is not cheap. And by the way, I kicked in about $15,000 of my own money to that $90,000. So you've got to be committed, and if the money's not there to get that campaign material out, you may have to go into your own pocket to make sure it gets done. In addition to that, you've got to go out and walk neighborhoods. You've got to spend a lot of time campaigning, so there's an opportunity cost to that from a candidate's perspective. Time that I spent campaigning was time that I couldn't spend in my law practice, trying to feed the children, as they say. So I had to raise and spend $90,000. That was in 2 elections. The first election took place in early September, and then I went to a runoff with I got 48.9% of the vote. I had to go to a runoff. So I had to go back and raise another $40,000. So all I can tell you is this, that money does pollute politics if you're looking at it from let's stand back, look at the system. We can all point out how flawed the system is, but the fact of the matter is you need money to get your message out. No one knew my name. Nobody knew who I was. They still don't for the most part. People don't know who their school board members are. And, but the way you get that message out is you print mail pieces and you send them out. You put yard signs out. And all of that costs money. So it really is an indispensable ingredient to political campaigns. Personally, I think it does require a little more regulation, but nonetheless, I think that there's no way to do away with money in politics.
You know, I listened to everybody else speak, and some wonderful points about the importance of at the youngest ages, understanding the political system and being involved. And then I heard, I heard like a little hypocrisy, is that our job as an educator, and I consider myself, I'm on the front line of education at all levels, but it's specifically when it comes to politics. And I hear politicians all day today that we've been here talk about the importance of money. I need money to get out there and to get my word out and get my message and share my beliefs and all. And then I talk to my kids, and I want my kids to participate and vote and to become active in the political system. But I have a lot of kids that don't have any money. And I just heard a bunch of politicians say that they need money. But I have kids that don't have any money and their families don't have any money. So how are these kids going to be truly represented by these people? In the ideal world, yeah, they would represent those people fine. But I heard politicians, not at this panel, but the panel before, say politicians are human and they make mistakes. And it's very difficult as a person on the front line to get these kids to understand why it's important to participate when these people don't really listen to this side, especially if you're under 25 and you're a minority and you don't have the financial support to influence these people. That's one point I saw. Another point, excuse me, I'm nervous, believe it or not. I hate microphones. I'd much rather just go up there. I am a coach too. I can go up there and scream, y'all could hear me. The other thing too is when we get to the point of teaching the importance of participation is this. A lot of people, and I think it's not just students, I think it's people in America, think participation is just voting. That's how I participate, I vote. When it's not that. Participation is nowhere limited to just voting. This weekend alone, I emailed every representative I have about the Terry Schiavo case because I thought it was important that they know my personal belief. It took 20 minutes. Every citizen needs to do that. Everyone needs to reach out so that these people can let these people know how they feel. And then I see that much of what I teach is this group of kids don't really understand what the importance that these people have on their lives are. And not just the local level, which Mr. Shea pointed out, that's probably the most important is the local level, about, who decides where a traffic light goes, who decides where, how the zoning for schools, why you go to this school, not that school. That stuff's unbelievably important. But today, it is the effects of the draft. It is the effects of the state level sales tax. At county level, let's increase the sales tax. Our income tax, all the different effects that the government has on kids. Kids just don't realize how much their lives are affected by government. They take things for granted. And that's the difficult thing for us on the front line, is making people understand not only are they affected by, but they need to participate. This group needs to put pressure on this group, especially when you don't have the financial or the contacts or the right people to put pressure on here. You need to become the right people. You need to be able to put the effects on this level. And I know that's the one thing that I try to get in my students is to get them to participate, not just by voting, by doing more. As I say that, every symposium Lou Frey runs an essay contest. Every single symposium. It has been for high schools every time. College one was just added this particular symposium. And it is unbelievably difficult to get high school students to write an essay when these lovely people are offering money for you. And I don't know what it is about high school students. This group doesn't want to reach out to this group. And then you understand maybe why this group doesn't listen to this group. Then maybe it all makes sense. When this group does reach out, but this group doesn't respond, even when this group is being offered scholarship money, offered opportunities, offered so many things, and they don't take advantage of it, maybe you understand why the two groups don't get along, and why we do have declining participation from a presidential election 40 years ago, you look at the participation level then until today. You look at different countries, the participation level they have compared to what we have. And you see the drop-off, and maybe you begin to understand why. And so as I see mostly high school students in this crowd right now, and it's not just me speaking, it's me, all these people here, there's other teachers in the crowd, that we put pressure on you because it is you that can put the influence on these people, these politicians, and it is you that can decide campaign finance, whether elections are for sale, or whatever political topic you want to decide. It's you that can do it. And that's why we psycho teachers put unbelievable pressure on you. You are our future, as the lovely saying goes. And we want you to be prepared to be good citizens, to participate in whatever you happen to participate in life. Don't just sit back and not do anything. I believe it or not, I actually have notes even too. My last point is just this, is that I do think it's important that everyone realizes that you need to participate in the political aspect of life, and don't limit it to just voting. Please don't. Get out there, talk to people, join an association, participate in your church, join a club, do whatever that you can become an active citizen and participant of our society, and put pressure on the people that need to have pressure on them. And I don't think Mr. Shea, as an elected official, will argue that with me. He wants pressure from you guys, so he knows what to do. Trust me. I've never asked them, and I guarantee I'm right. So I hope I'm right. All right, thank you, guys.
Let me just tell you a story that how I got involved in this process, because I think it touches a little bit on it. I was never interested in politics. In high school or college or the Navy, and in law school I had a job, and besides going to school, so I sort of interested in academically. And I came back home to practice law, and we had a small law practice, and my partner Bill Mateer said, go join some clubs so we could get some clients, which as a young lawyer you do. And I saw a meeting of the Young Republicans. I was a Democrat at the time. There weren't any Republicans in town. So I went down to the Young Republican Club and joined it. And next thing I know, there were 11 people in the club, and 6 of them left, and I was president of the club, you know, in about 3 months. And all of a sudden, I became aware that, yeah, it's true, how important politics was, and how it could make a difference in my life and my parents' life. There were printers in town, and it was like a light went on. And when I got elected to Congress, I ran when I was 32, got elected when I was 33, one of the first things I did was start a high school intern program. And every high school elected a student to live with me for 8 days. We'd bring them up in bunches, and we had 33 high schools in the district. And I did that because nobody gave me a chance or exposed me to the political system. And it is so fundamental to our country and to what we have that it was a shame, but I never had a chance. I never had anybody like Tom around to beat me in the head. And it worked really, really well. And you got to remember, those were the days before you all were born, but with Watergate, and everybody had hair down their backs and afro, and everybody was trying to blow Washington up, and it was an interesting period of time. We had Vietnam. And I had about 300 and some students over that time, and I can't tell you how many of them, even today, have thanked me for doing that and how it made an impact on their lives. And that's part of the reason that we started this symposium and this idea to reach out to young people, not to preach at all, but just to open your minds up to what's out there. And in the Congress in '69, George Bush and Bill Brock and I wrote a bill which was called the Brock Report, and in it we set up the college loan program, we set up the volunteer army, and we also called for the 18-year-old vote, which we sponsored and got through the Congress, knowing when we did it that the 18 to 25 would still have the worst voting record in the country. No matter what we did, it wasn't going to change. And unfortunately, we were right. The first election, about 50% of the people in that thing voted, and now it's down under 18% in congressional elections. So I'm here. I believe in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny. You know, I know it's difficult, and I know that we won't reach everybody, but I think if we reach out and listen and exchange ideas, and that I think it's possible to make it better. And hopefully your generation will be smarter than we were and figure out a way to make it even better. And I think I learned that in the years in leadership at Congress. I didn't get everything I wanted done, but I felt if I could leave it better than I found it, I'd done something that was important. And you know, so I think it's an interesting process, and I think this has been a very interesting panel. I've learned a lot just listening. How about any questions now? We've got time for some questions.
I think one of the biggest problems that our generation has with politics is that we hear people talking and we hear all these great things, but we never see anything happen. And a lot of the problems, I think, is hypocrisy. And we look at that and we say we don't want to get involved. So I'm wondering what you can do as a school board member, because my mother, for one, has been involved in the school board for years, and all I've ever heard is hypocrisy and lies and people talking and money being scandals. And so I'm curious if, you know,
well, let me take a moment
to
to talk out of both sides of my mouth. No, I think the programs are there. Frankly, I think that we have a number of really hardworking teachers in Orange County Public Schools who try to present programs that will enlighten students, for lack of a better word, or that students can participate in. I know we have a number of schools that have both a Democrat club and a Republican club, and people who are active in those clubs. I will say that really the second question really plays into your first question, and that is, how do we overcome the cynicism that's there? How do we overcome the negative view of the political process and try to get people to participate? And I can just give you my own personal view of that. And I think if you have a positive view of the political process and you want to participate, there are many opportunities to participate, both in the community and in schools. I think we do take that very seriously as a school board. We do open schools up when people want to have programs and people want to have students participate in the democratic process. But I think, I don't know, how do you overcome that kind of cynicism? How do you overcome, it's kind of difficult. I know that when I was in high school, in fact, I was I was a senior in high school when that bill was passed to let 18-year-olds vote. And my, huh?
I feel old.
Yeah, I feel old. And I wasn't old enough to vote either. I was 17. So I think that there was a lot of cynicism then as well. It was during the Nixon administration. Vietnam was at its height. There were some pretty clear lines of demarcation drawn in the political dialogue. There were some generational lines drawn. There were some ideological lines drawn, and in many ways, I think it's similar to what's going on now. I think there's some ideological lines drawn, and there seems to be conflict on a number of different issues. I don't know how you overcome the cynicism. I can only tell you how I overcame it, and that is how I just got up off my butt and decided that I was going to do what I could to change it. That's why I ran for office. I saw a school board meeting. I got involved in my kids' schools. I saw a school board meeting. I didn't like what I saw. I thought it could be improved. Now, I'm no candidate for the Mensa Society. I'm not some political genius that thinks I can go in and as one person change things overnight. But I do know that what I saw I didn't like, and that I was at least going to give it a shot. Now, at that point in time, was I cynical about the process? Yes. Any given day, I can still be cynical about the process. The question is not whether you're going to be cynical or whether you're going to be disenchanted. The question is whether you're going to permit that to be a barrier to your participation. And I also think that at the time when I was in high school and I was taking a look around when I was my first stab at college in that period of time, that there were 4 television networks: ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS, and that was it. They had 45-minute news programs. They had hour news programs that went down to 45 minutes, then finally down to a half an hour. We didn't have, 250 television stations, each of which has their own ideological agenda, and we had Shout TV, and, political discourse seemed to take on a more measured kind of demeanor than I think what we see in the media today, because really it's entertainment. What we see passed off as political discourse is really entertainment. So I think that plays into it, the cynicism as well, and I think that it's unfortunate that we have that kind of entertainment out there, but we need to look at it as entertainment. So all I can tell you is that from my perspective, the cynicism's there. On any given day, I kind of put my head down. I go down there downtown to 9 floors of confusion and 9 floors of mixed policy, and I say, well, just kind of put my head down and say, what can I do today? Is there something I can do today to make things a little bit better? And the answer is usually yes. Even if it's something small, even if I call Mrs. Jones because she's got a problem with her kid in some school, or if I work with a local developer to get a school moved up by a year, if I can just do something to move it forward. So all I can say to you is that I just wouldn't let the cynicism, and I wouldn't let your occasional cynical lapses, let's say, act as a barrier to participation.
Your comment was that we as teenagers and students hear words but don't see results, and you said that the pervading sense is one of hypocrisy. And I think that while that is true on one hand, a lot of it is our fault also. When something's important to us, we research it. And I think a lot of times, especially during election years and stuff, we see ads on TV. We see the Swift Boat ads. We see the MoveOn.org ads. And we think, look at this. There's so much infighting and backstabbing either we take it as, yes, that's truth, or, they're opposing parties. I'm not going to believe any of it. But if you go and research what's behind it and how the candidates actually stand for it, I think a lot of times we have to take responsibility for it, and we have to do the work. If I went to the mall and saw a sign saying there's like a 50% off sale going on, but that's all it said, I guarantee you I'm going to go into that store to see what there's a sale on. And it could be great where it's like 50% off all t-shirts, and I'm psyched. It could be 50% off all parkas in the middle of July. So whether or not the results are what you want, you have to get involved and you have to research, or really we have no right to say they should be doing it differently, they shouldn't be doing this. If we're not researching it and getting the ideas of what we want done, we really have no room to talk.
I think that I see too many people, and this isn't just limited to teenagers, there's too many people in our country that listen to what they see on television, 250 plus channels or whatever it is, and they make decisions on people and make decisions on issues based on what they saw and what they heard instead of active participation. And I guess that's what you're saying about by going out there and joining something and become a part of something. I don't make something better by complaining about it. I make something better by getting involved. And that's, I really wish more people did that.
I always tell people is be careful of labels. When you hear people label, liberal, conservative, this or that, put a red flag up. What do they really mean? What do they really stand for? A lot of people hide behind labels, and you never can figure out where they're coming from. The other thing I think you've got to understand today is that, and I was the ranking member of the Communications Committee that unfortunately caused a lot of this trauma and divesting AT&T some years ago. The other thing you have to recognize is that the media's changed. People today tend to listen to the stations that they want to hear. The polls show, matter of fact, the Bush people were very smart in doing it with radio. They put their advertising in certain radio shows and certain radio things in Ohio, for instance, that made a big difference. So today, while you got a lot of channels, people would listen, maybe they like Fox News, as such, or they like MSNBC. But you're getting a slanted view on whatever station you listen to. I don't care about the things they'll advertise fair and all that kind of thing. They're all biased, and that's all right. That's all right, as long as there's competition and you understand it and you're willing to go some other place. Listen to the different views and so forth. There's nothing wrong with people having a viewpoint. What I think is wrong and I don't like is when they try and hide that viewpoint, but that's part of the deal. You gotta be smart enough to look behind what they're saying and where they're coming from. I can look at a bill in Congress to this day and look up at the board and see who's voted for it. I can tell you where it's going to go or not. When I was there, we had somebody named Bella Abzug, who was from New York, and she was not a very pleasant person. And when I was in the leadership on the Republican side and people would come in the doors, they come in the middle door and the side doors, all I would say is Abzug Amendment. And that was it. She couldn't get a bill through to make the 4th of July a holiday. And the personal side of it, and the Republicans like that, not just that. So you've got to know the territory. You got to know who you're dealing with and be willing to take the time to listen a little, to look at a little. It is not simple. It is not easy. But I don't think there's anything I've done in my life that is easy and simple. And one last thing. Somebody once told me that don't ever be for an economic theory you couldn't put in a bumper sticker. And that's part of the problem with this country. Everybody wants something you can put in a bumper sticker, instant this, instant that, have a quick answer to the thing. It doesn't work that way. $2 trillion budget problems we have, difficult problems. No one party or person has all the answers, but give yourself a chance. Don't be conned. Listen to the different things and make your mind up.